Hello everybody, Pokemon Trainer Rob here, and welcome back to another episode of the Pokemon Emerald Battle Frontier. With the Battle Dome symbol in our possession, it's time to move on to the next establishment, the Battle Tower. Now, I mentioned this in the last video, but the Battle Tower is actually a lot more straightforward than the Battle Dome, at least in the sense that we can use all three Pokemon we choose for each round. However, we don't get the novelty of seeing each trainer's Pokemon before the battle. So if we get a very bad matchup across the board, well, tough luck for us then. Because every trainer's Pokemon will be completely random, and we have no way of knowing what they will have. With the sole exception of the Frontier Brain's Pokemon, thank you Bulbapedia. Also, instead of 4 battles per round, we have 7 battles per round. So if you want the symbol, you'll have to endure 35 battles with no losses, and 70 if you want the gold symbol. So safe to say, we will continue to have our work cut out for us. Also, much like the Battle Dome, every time we win a battle, the Assistant Lady will heal you up, so don't worry about low health, low PP, or status effects. But yeah, let's get this started. Much like last time, I'll cover the entire first round of battles, and then just cover the finals for each additional round, including the Frontier Brain attempts. Round 1 starts, and once again I decide to start with Bowser Girl, Sig, and Slavko. I guess my logic here is, if it's not broken, don't fix it. However, I put Bowser Girl in front this time to give her a little more screen time, at least for this first round. We start up against a Meta-type, where unfortunately a Flamethrower doesn't take it down, but a missed high jump kick knocks itself out instead. Oddish is next, and Flamethrower takes it down easily, bringing out Why Not. Now, I knew this thing probably had Mirror Coat, and sure enough, the counter blow KO'd my lovely turtle partner. But I still have 2 Pokemon in reserves, and Why Not has no health to survive, leading to an easy victory. Battle number 2 begins with Spinda, that manages to confuse Bowser Girl and put her into a rough spot to start, and frankly things don't get too much better for her when the trainer follows up with a Seal right afterwards. Yeah, this is not a super great showing of Torkoal, is it? But, oh well, I at least decided to use this bad matchup to strike up a sunny day and give Sig a chance to single-turn Solar Beam the Seal and Brick Break the Eevee that closes out this team. Battle number 3 starts with a double-team Pikachu that Bowser Girl thankfully breaks through and gets with a one-shot Flamethrower. However, the Voltorb that follows is a little more pesky, using Light Screen to increase special defense and Spark to paralyze Bowser Girl. I try to break through, but it's not quite enough, forcing Sig to jump in instead. Sig also gets paralyzed unfortunately, but still manages to take out the Voltorb and the Elekid that follows, even breaking another Light Screen barrier in the process. You know, I enjoy how much this has happened so far here at the Battle Frontier. Really shows how good of a move that Brick Break is. Battle number 4 goes a little better for Bowser Girl, one-shotting the next trainer's Meowth and Natu, although Natu does manage to get a Future Sight in that will have relevance a bit later. Although Flamethrower does do good damage against Teddiursa, it's not enough to KO, and Secret Power does unfortunately cause paralysis, leading to Bowser Girl once again going down to a combination of Feint Attack and the previously mentioned Future Sight. Thankfully, Sig can finish this normal type very easily. Battle number 5 starts with a one-shot Flamethrower on Doduo, then Azurill, and not quite on Spinda, which does manage to confuse us again, but thankfully Bowser Girl breaks through and solos this entire team. And battle number 6 pretty much goes the same way, one-shotting a Nuzleaf, two-shotting an Aipom, and then very nearly one-shotting an Aron. Thankfully though, the Flamethrower burned Aron, KOing it with burn damage right after it took its turn. The final battle of round 1 has us up against a Lickitung, which is quite tanky, but it still goes down to 3 Flamethrowers. The following Magneton goes down with only 1 though, leaving Hitmonlee to close out this battle. Now, fighting types do kinda scare me with my team, because I don't really have any dedicated flying or psychic types, and it's Slavko's one main weakness. However, it's a 3-on-1, and Bowser Girl and Sig can finish it off without me needing to bring in Slavko, getting our first Battle Tower completion. However, we still need a few more before we get our Frontier Brain match. Round number 2's final match starts with Lairon versus Iceman. But since I have more Pokemon to contend with this time around, I decide switching to Sig is probably a good idea, just so I can get a quad effective Brick Break. Next up is Marshtomp, which, again, quad effective attack, this time Giga Drain, for the win. Last up is Lickitung, which Brick Break alongside an Effect Spore Poison is enough to get the win. Round number 3's final team is a little more dicey. I start with Glalie versus Mischievous, which seems like it would be a good fight for me as I have Crunch, but remember, it's not stab effective with Glalie, so I don't do as much damage as I hope. In addition to that, Mischievous puts an annoying combination of both confusion and paralysis on us, which weakens us pretty heavily for this fight. We do make it through, but Vileplume is next, and we are too slow to do anything productive. I bring out Sig next, but forget that Sludge Bomb is not going to hit too hard against it, and end up losing 2 Pokemon against just the second Mon. Thankfully, Slavko is next, and Aerial Ace is enough to KO, and he can survive long enough against Victory Bell to one-shot with Hyper Beam. Round 4's final actually made me a bit nervous though. Trainer starts with an Umbreon, so I switch to Sig for the super effective Brick Break. But with leftovers, Umbreon's surprising tankiness, and the curses it starts using, it takes 3 super effective moves to take it down. At least it didn't attack me at all during this time. However, things get worse when it sends out Typhlosion next, something both Sig and Iceman are not super equipped for dealing with. So I switch over to Slavko for the one-shot Hyper Beam, unfortunately taking 2 really strong flamethrowers along with it and surviving with not much health left. I still have all 3 of my Pokemon, but the final Pokemon is unfortunately another Fire type in Flareon, and Slavko is about dead and can't attack this turn. Flareon attacks with Double Edge and takes out Slavko, forcing me to bring in my Ice or Grass type. I decide to use Sig for Brick Break damage, and luckily Flareon doesn't go for any fire moves and sticks with Curse and Double Edge, which does great damage, but I am able to weaken it enough so it goes down to the recoil damage. See, this is the problem if you have 2 Pokemon that are weak to one particular typing. Situations like this can be really scary and risky. It's time for round number 5, which means it's time to fight the Frontier Brain, Annabelle. Annabelle will always have the same 3 Pokemon at this point, an Alakazam, an Entei, and a Snorlax to round out the party. Knowing this, I changed my team before this round to get ready for this particular scenario, and brought Kip with me instead of Sig. The battle starts with Glalie against the Alakazam, and although I do have Crunch, Alakazam is just too powerful, and I can only weaken it a little before it gets me with 2 different elemental punches. Thankfully, Slavko is more than enough to finish it off. Entei is out next, and I decide to switch over to Kip for the quad resistance against Fire Blast. It still knows Return though, and gets some damage on me, but thankfully not a lot. 1 Earthquake takes out Entei, and then we're on to Snorlax. I do get a few Earthquakes in, but Snorlax is tanky, and survives 2 of them. Meanwhile, he also paralyzes Kip with Body Slam, slowing him down enough to where he can't get a 3rd one, and finishes him off that turn. However, Slavko is still waiting in the wings, and is fast enough to get the final blow, allowing me to obtain my ability symbol. But now, it's overtime. Let's see if we can make it to the gold ability symbol. Also, just a quick note, I did use rare candies for the rest of my team to get everyone up to level 76 at this point. I figured that since Kip was the only one at 76, it just made sense to raise that level for everyone else. Don't want to get screwed over by 1 level of difference in future battles if I bring Kip again. For round number 6's finale, we start with Iceman against a Dusclops, and yeah, it's pretty bulky. Not even Crunch is breaking through its defenses, and unfortunately it also has Rest, so it gets back to full health easily. After a few ice attacks though, along with it using Curse to inflict me with residual damage, it goes down and brings out Clefable. Sig is next, and a Brick Break is what the doctor ordered to finish it up. The last Pokemon is Quagsire, which, quad effective Giga Drain, and we're good. The final of round number 7 starts as round 6 ended, with a Water Ground type, this time with Swampert. After realizing that Giga Drain might not be enough to one-shot, and the fact that it might have Mirror Coat, I decide to open with Solar Beam, and sure enough, Swampert was trying to use counter strats. Nice try. Second up is Shiftry, which its Dark typing leads to an easy Brick Break one-shot. The final Pokemon is Credilli, and after another Brick Break, it still has enough HP to use a substitute, weakening itself even more. It delays its loss a little with Recover, but it's not enough to save it from the Sig Sweep. The finals of round number 8 start with a little bit of trouble as Iceman is up against the Charizard. However, I don't let this deter me just yet, since Blizzard will still do good neutral damage, as well as get a lucky freeze in. With Charizard completely frozen, all it takes is another Blizzard to take out its first Pokemon. Next up is Snorlax, and I decide that since I have the upper hand, I'll just go ahead and do damage and let Sig finish it off in the second switch. However, not only does Iceman go down, but Brick Break isn't enough to KO the Snorlax, and it decides to use Double Edge, which one-shots Sig with ease. However, since it did a lot of damage, it will still do a lot of recoil damage, and Snorlax didn't have quite enough to survive the blowback, knocking it out as well. The final Pokemon for this battle is Walrein, and while it is pretty tanky and powerful, so is Slavko. Although this battle does take a few rounds to get resolved. Hyper Beam almost one-shots, but this Walrein has Hail and also Protect, and also Leftovers. So it very consistently starts to revive HP, and prevents Slav from finishing this beast off. Eventually though, I get my opening, and after it lands a Blizzard, and I finally take it out with Hyper Beam. Round number 9's final battle was actually pretty easy, but it involved me not really paying attention to certain things, making it closer than it probably should have been. It starts with Iceman versus Crobat, where an easy Blizzard one-shots Crobat after I take a lot of damage and get poisoned. The trainer sends out Aggron next, and here I really should have just switched to Sig for the quad effective damage and likely one-shot, but I kept Iceman in for some reason, and it goes down to a powerful Rock Slide without me doing much damage in return. I bring in Sig, get the one-shot kill, and last is Venusaur. I start off using Sludge Bomb, which does a little less than half damage, but Venusaur decides to use Sunny Day. Me, thinking it would be funny to use a one-turn Solar Beam here that the Venusaur set up for us, shows that a quad-resisted Solar Beam does much less damage than the Sludge Bomb I did earlier, essentially making this a very wasted turn. Meanwhile, Venusaur Sludge Bombs me instead, getting the poison effect and KOing Sig in one go. Thankfully, all Slav needs to do is Hyper Beam to finish up this fight, but this battle could have been so much more efficient if I didn't try to get cute with my choices. So once again, we do make it to the Frontier Brain rematch, and Annabelle is ready to take us on again. She keeps her closing Snorlax from last time, but she replaces Entei with another legendary beast, Raikou, and has Latios instead of the Alakazam. So yeah, this will be a challenge. However, I did switch up who I brought for this round, and I'm honestly glad I did. We first start with Kip versus Raikou, and would you believe Raikou only has one attacking move and it's electric? Yeah, so this first matchup is just seeing how long Raikou can stall while I use Earthquakes. When it goes down, Latios is up next, and I know that Kip is probably not too long for this world, but I go ahead and use some Ice Beams because Latios is a Dragon type. And it does actually work out nicely as we get Latios close to death before it knocks out my starter. And if you thought Kip was my secret weapon, well, you'd only be half right because I also brought Dark Lord the Dusclops. And with Latios in death range, I have a few good options here. I ultimately decided to use Toxic though, because I really thought it was going to use Recover here. But it surprises me with a Psychic instead, something I at least resist a little bit. I survive and land Toxic and KO Latios, bringing in Snorlax. Knowing that Snorlax has Shadow Ball, I decide to go ahead and use Toxic again, just to give it some extra residual damage in case Hyper Beam doesn't one-shot when I bring in Slavko later, since, as expected, this Snorlax does have Rest. Slav comes in after Dark Lord lands the Toxic and gets Shadow Balled, uses Hyper Beam, and critical hits! Annabelle is down, and we get our second gold symbol. Dang, and I wasn't even sure I could get one, and we're already 2 for 2 so far. I really don't think we'll get all gold symbols personally, but I'm definitely up for giving it a shot at the very least and seeing what we can do. Overall, Battle Tower was probably a little easier than the Battle Dome, despite needing to go through more battles. There's just something about 3 versus 3s that fit perfectly with Pokemon, and I feel like if you have a dedicated 3 that can cover each other, for all the potential weaknesses, it can be pretty fun seeing your team's potential. Just don't make any silly mistakes like I did this round. That kind of stuff can really cost you. But yeah, that's going to do it for the Battle Tower. Next time we are going to focus on a building that includes a challenge we dealt with earlier in the game for one of the 3 battle tents throughout Hoenn. Which one though? Well, I haven't recorded it yet, so you'll find out when the video releases, because I honestly don't know yet. This has been Pokemon Trainer Rob. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Later, folks.